Good morning, guys. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody is good. Nice and hot, probably, and good at the same time. Well, welcome to the Addicted to Gear live Sunday stream, which is basically a place where we all gather to either augment our gear addiction or talk us down off the ledge, depending on how you look at things. But I feel that it's always a good place for us to get together and discuss what's happening in the world of guitars and gear. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, my addicted friends. I was thinking over the week it might be interesting to have like a little contest going where you guys put in your votes as to which guitar I'll be holding during the show. And if you guess correctly, maybe there'll be a prize or something like that. How does that sound? Could be fun, right? Today I'm holding this. This is my Kramer Beretta, which I modified with the Vega Trem, and sounds great. This one, Vega Trem, as well as the Seymour Duncan JB pickup in the guitar. One pickup only. That's all you need, really. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun playing this guitar. So we'll play a little bit during the show. How's everyone out there? Is everybody hot as I am? We're hitting some pretty high temperatures. It's very muggy, very hot. We're expecting thunder showers today. I hope it's not gonna happen too close to my rehearsal time, because I'm gonna be rehearsing tonight and we're supposed to be getting thunder showers for a few hours. And there's nothing worse than having to make sure your gear doesn't get all wet when you're lugging it in and out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's very heavy and very humid. The guitar necks are all over the place these days with the humidity. So I constantly find myself having to adjust according to the temperatures and the humidity scale. You're probably doing the same. So I was looking at some of your comments before, and I'll go back and read and say hi to everybody that's here. So Jack is here. Good morning. We're experiencing a nice Sunday. I mean, it's nice so far, but it risks changing very quickly. We've been getting a lot of squall warnings, and we don't usually get those here as much. In the last couple of days, I think we had like 3 or 4. So yeah, and it came down pretty heavy last week. So Jack says, Tony, something told me to get my Strat out of the case and play it this morning for some reason. Well, you should be doing that every day, Jack. Every day, man. Every day is a Strat day. Cushman says hello. So hi, Cushman. How's it going, man? Everything good on your end? Hope so, brother. Hope everything's going good. Nice and smooth. Jack says he's trying to get his coffee and weed to kick in. Wayne McConnell is here as well. We have DMAC. And so Wayne says, hey, Rex, so I'm in Canada and it's already getting hot here. You know, Canadians are not very, we're not a very good gauge in terms of temperatures because, you know, we don't really withstand heat too well. We're pretty good in the cold, but we kind of like wither away in the heat. So Rexomatic, we have Cushman, as I said earlier. We have, well, Rex said that they hit 118 Fahrenheit in Phoenix while we were meandering up to Montana. 118. Oof. Yeah, that's a lot, man. That's like 100 more than I'm used to. I don't do well in the heat, man. If it gets hot, I go inside. I stay in my climate-controlled environment as much as I can. The only heat I can take is the heat from my tubes in the amps when they're cooking. That I can take. Let's see here. So Vinny's World is here. It's me, Don P. The Nye, Profile Productions. Um, where's the poll question, or what's the poll question? Profile the poll question today was how many pedals you typically have on your pedal board, and there was a couple of different, like 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, or so on and so forth. And I'm curious to see like what kind of pedal boards you guys have. If it's just like they're mini pedal boards, a couple of pedals, or if you guys go full out, full David Gilmour, where you have like 20 pedals on the board. And the reason I put up that poll question this week was because I was messing around with my pedal board. You can see it just there, just getting things ready, rehearsal and stuff. I sometimes reevaluate before that, depending on what guitar and what amp I'm going to be taking. Some amps require different things, and so depending on the amp, I'll have, like, for example, with the Brunetti Plexi Man, I'll just move this out of the way so you guys can get a better view. With the Brunetti Plexi Man that I have up there, I don't really need a lot of pedals because it does everything. It's such a well-designed amplifier because it has the clean channel. So if you're doing cleans, all you need to put up, maybe add to it, is just maybe a little reverb if you want that, maybe a little delay depending on what you're playing. But then if you go to channel 1, you have the drive that sounds great just right out of the amp, so you don't really need another drive pedal. And then it has the hot rod mode, which is basically like a hot rodded Plexi, so you have plenty of gain. So beyond maybe a tuner, perhaps a boost, but that amplifier also has the solo boost, so you can actually set your solo switch to boost the volume, so you don't even really need a boost pedal. I think the only thing you really need with that amplifier are a couple of modulation effects, but I don't take the pedals off because it's a hassle putting them back on and taking them off depending on what amp I'm using. So if I'm using something different, then I'll have the drive pedals. The EQ pedal's always good to have in there as well, in case you want to mess around with some frequencies when you're in the space playing with the band. It's always great. So, I typically max out my board, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on when we get to the poll question. But yeah, that's how, in a nutshell, that's how I like to handle things. Let's see who else is here. So Zach is here, Martian Murray, Mark's Gas Station, Dan Gorman, DMAC, BC Rich 581, and other people are trickling in. Great. Mark is here as well. Mark says he played a 3-hour gig yesterday outside, and I probably sweat out a gallon of water. What was the temperature, Mark, in your area? I'm sure it was pretty hot. You know what? It's funny. I went to watch. When was this? It was Friday night. Went to watch. In my area, they have these little events that are free. There's a local area where there's a lot of restaurants, and they have like a square in the middle of it all. And what they started doing this year was they started inviting bands to play. So every Friday night, there's a new band. And these are mostly cover bands, I would say, but really good. Like, they specialize in certain things, right? So Friday, my wife and I decided to go and watch, sort of spur of the moment. And there was a Beatles tribute band playing. And they were awesome. They played really, really well, decked out like in early Beatles attire, when they were wearing the matching jackets and the nice pants, the nice shoes, kind of like I would say the early days. And they played a lot of the early tunes of the Beatles. I thought they were going to get into the older stuff because I looked them up online and they do all of it. They do the early stuff as well as the later stuff. But they only played about an hour and a half, but it was really hot. that evening was stifling hot. So they did an excellent job, by the way. I thought they had everybody moving and going, and I thought with the amount of people that actually showed up, I thought it was like the real Beatles because there was no parking anywhere close to the venue. We had to park like, almost like a kilometer away and walk in. It was jam packed. So I had a lot of fun. They had everything down to the T. They were playing the Vox amps. They had the old style instruments, the Ludwig drum set, the Hofner bass, and all of the good stuff. Did an awesome job. So we had a great time, and there's nothing beats a live show, I say. If you can, and free live shows, most of them are pretty good. You'd be surprised. Okay, so let's start off the day. Let's start off with some input from you guys. What's new on your end? I like to turn the mic over to you guys first because I want to be able to talk about what you guys are looking at and doing before I get into my talking points, because I don't want to take over. It's supposed to be a dialogue, and I know sometimes there's new people. Oh, and by the way, if you are new, please subscribe to be able to chat. Otherwise, you're going to be blocked. You have to subscribe for at least a minute and then jump in. Everybody's welcome. There's no dumb questions or topics that are off limits. You can talk about pretty much anything. We try and stick to music stuff, music and gear, but sometimes we go off on tangents, and that's fine too. We eventually come on back to music and gear. So let's start off with any questions you guys have, or anything that you guys have gotten into trouble over with your wives over the last week. Maybe a new acquisition, something cool. Let us know. Share with the class. John says, my board is like an IKEA shelf that I painted black. I took all my pedals off to rearrange 5 years ago and never got around to putting them back on. They're all in a couple of bags at the moment. You know what? It's really cool to see some very ingenious ways people are putting together their own pedal boards. Like, there's no right or wrong way. Whatever works for you is great. And some people will take the minimalistic approach and just use whatever they have available. They won't necessarily go out and buy something expensive, and you don't really have to, as long as it works for you. My board that I have back there is the Acclam board that I actually reviewed quite a while ago. I've been using that ever since because it doesn't require Velcro. And there's a lot of other similar, I guess you would call them knockoffs, that exist these days that have kind of implemented the same thing. But I like the fact that you don't have to put Velcro on your pedals. It's always messy. It's always like, I don't like having to constantly apply and remove Velcro. These have the little slider grips that you can put in a channel and basically lock down with a screw. And then you can, and it holds everything perfectly well. So ever since I discovered that one, I kind of adopted that as my main board. I have other ones that I use from time to time, smaller ones, but that one, when I want to maximize the board and use them as much as I can fit, like my power supply on that can basically provide power to about 8 pedals, and I think there's 8 on there right now. So can't put any more without having an additional power supply. Let's see here. Rico says, have you ever played a custom shop Les Paul R9? Yes, I have, Rico. A friend of mine had one. He brought it over. It's a great instrument, great feeling instrument. I like them a lot. I don't know if I can justify the price on them though. They're just too expensive, I think they're great, but again, like any other guitar, you have to kind of find the right one. They're not all made the same. So if you're going to be dropping that kind of coin, you want to make sure that you get an opportunity to try a few. And there lies the problem, because a lot of stores don't have that many. If they have 1 or 2, that's about it. So if you don't bond with one of those, then you're kind of out of luck. You might feel like they're all no good, or maybe, but it's worth a shot. Are you considering getting one, Rico? Is that why you're asking? Are you in the market for a custom shop version of a Les Paul? That would make a really nice gift to yourself. Guitar Pit of Horrors says, can't complain, wife's itching to buy me more guitars. What? Well, she's definitely a keeper, man. I don't know where you found her. Does your wife play guitar too? I guess it helps if they have a similar passion. My wife doesn't really care about guitars, so, you know, she's not into it. So, but she kind of lets me be, as you can already see behind me. She kind of gave up a long time ago. She knew it was a losing battle, so now she's kind of come to the realization that, you know, I'm not going to change at this stage, so she kind of rolls with it, which is great. She's fantastic, can't complain at all. Very patient, to say the least. Vox says, I have a pedal board that varies from 3 to 7 pedals. What's a good single unit power supply to use? Wall warts are giving me headaches. Why don't you like the wall warts, like the, what are they called? The power all type things. Yeah, those are not really a great option. They're good in a pinch. I have one. I still have one here when I just want to power up one pedal. But I don't really use it for gigging purposes. The one I have, which I've had for years, hasn't let me down yet. I've probably owned that same power supply for, I'm gonna say, it's probably going on 15 years. And that's the Decibel 11 power supply. Now, I haven't kept up with what they've been putting out, or even if they're still in business, to be honest with you. But the one I have is great. Let me see if they have anything new here. I'm going to go to the website real quick, because I know they always come out with new stuff. So yeah, so they have a couple of different models. So they have the Hot Stone Deluxe, which is sold out right now. And that's what I have. It just allows for more inputs and outputs. It's about $150 US, but it works really well. All the outputs are isolated, so that you know, you don't get any noise, or magnetically shielded and all that great stuff. And they do have outputs that give you 9 volt and 11 volt as well. So if you want to have a little bit more juice, you have that as well. So I recommend that. I mean, from my own personal experience, those worked great for me. So Presley's here. Hey Presley, what's happening, dude? What's new? What's cooking on your workbench today or this week? DMAX says, I finally picked up an FR speaker Headrush Go. Just playing lower volumes in the living room, so didn't need anything more. Versatile, it sounds good with my my HX Stomp and my Lion pedal. I love my FR pedals whenever I get speakers whenever I get an opportunity to play through a modeling unit. That's my go-to in a live scenario. And the Headrush units work pretty well. When I play with the band and I bring my Headrush speaker, it heats up. It really does. So, but it hasn't let go or anything like that. So today I'm plugged into basically, it's a Matribox. This is a Sonic Cake unit, a Matribox 2 Pro, which I'm going to be reviewing on the channel real soon. Working on a review for that for you guys. A pretty nice unit, man. Sounds good and has a lot of options. I try to get my head around it all, before I actually do a review. I don't just open the box and do the review, because there's all kinds of features and functions that are sort of hidden in here. This one has a really nice interface, and I like it so far. It sounds really nice. So I'm going to be showing you guys a little more on that. Let me just scroll here a little bit. Let's see. DMAX says, I want one of those so bad, but they don't import them here. Sorry, that's Vinny's World talking to DMAC. They don't import the FR speakers? Where are you located, Vinny? Rexo says, I think we'll do a travel rig video. I bought this to work on new songs. Harley Benton Travel Acoustic, Hills Headless, Harley Benton Street Box, Voiced Live 3, wireless mic, Spark 40. What are your rigs? So does anybody out here have some rigs that they use for travel? I don't really travel that much with gear, to be honest. Whenever I do travel, it's kind of, I'm too busy to play, so I don't really bother. But if anybody else does, Rexo who's asking, let us know. Scrolling a little bit here. So Rico says, I'm interested in the custom shop Les Paul. Lots available on Reverb or Gear Exchange, but I really want to actually play it before I drop the money. Yep. That's exactly what I was going to recommend, Rico. When you're dropping that kind of change, man, I would say, yes, have your hands on the guitar before you actually buy it. You don't want to take a chance with something like that. Although, they're very nice guitars. They're not all great. And you have to remember that if you buy something like that and then you're not happy with it and you try to flip it, typically, when you're trying to sell something above a certain amount of money, it's hard. I see a lot of these things sitting there for a long time, not because people don't want them, it's just because people can't afford them. So, you would hate to lose a lot of your money that you've put into it if you really don't bond with it. So I would say play it, sleep on it, and then make that decision. Hey, St. Brando, what's happening, man? Your picture of Frank Zappa always cheers me up when I see that on Sunday. Good old Uncle Frank. I miss Frank. Steven's here as well. Hey, Steven, what's happening, dude? Keeping busy? Working on anything new? You always have a few projects going. DMAX says, in response to Guitar Pit of Horrors, I found it takes a bit to get used to the FR, but they're cool to check out. I like the Fender 10 and 12-inch FR cabs a lot, also just beyond my needs and price range right now. So one tip I can offer if anybody is looking at or just bought an FR speaker is that you will initially, when you plug in your gear, if you've dialed in your sounds to be optimized for an amp, for example, if you're playing a multi-effects or whatever and you're going through an amp setup, or it's going to be very different when you plug in the FR speaker, because full frequency flat response means that it's going to give you the real sound. And it took me a while to adjust because you have to adjust the frequencies quite a bit. And even an 8-inch speaker, 10-inch speaker in those things provides a lot of bass. And it might sound great in a room if you're playing by yourself, but when you go into a band scenario, there's way too much bass. And sometimes you can get drowned out. So you're going to want to adjust the frequencies on your multi-effects unit to kind of cut those low-end frequencies as much as possible to be able to stick out in the mix. These are things you'll learn as you go. It might not sound as full when you're playing by yourself, but when you play with a band, it works. So it depends on how you're using it and where you're using it. My pleasure, Vox. Anytime, man. Daniel wants to know the weight of that pedal board. I don't know. I never actually weighed it. It's not light. It's not light. It probably weighs, if I had to guess, I'm going to say like close to 20 pounds. I'm going to say like between 15 and 20 pounds, somewhere around there. So Profile says he picked up a Ningui 2004 Power Stratocaster, scalloped frets, and a Fishman bridge. Yeah, nice, man. And he says, nice guitar, Tony. Thanks, man. These little guitars, man, you can get them for cheap. You get them for like a couple $100. And this one I bought used. This is an older one. The newer ones are different. This one, it was actually, now they're making them, I don't remember if this was Indonesia or where it was made, but I know it wasn't made in the same place that they're making them now. And the guy had already put in the JB pickup. He already modified that. And it was set up beautifully because he had his luthier set it up. And all I did was added the blacked out Vega trem. And it plays wonderfully now. So I liked it so much I actually put another Vega trem in my other one. Because I have two of these. Anyway, they're great to play with, and if you grab one, a lot of fun. Just tweak it to your own liking, and they make great guitars. Great. Not too much money. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a fun guitar. So Presley says he's giving some advice to Rico. I hear you. It's difficult to pay that much money and not hold and play it first. I just incorporate the price of a professional setup, including a plec, if it needs it, and no worries. A good setup is always going to go a long way. Highly recommend setting up any guitar. If you can't do it yourself, find somebody that you trust that can do a really good job, and it's well worth the money. Mark says he uses a Friedman power grid for his gigging board. I use a True Tone CS7 for my home board. I never tried the Friedman power stuff, the power grid, but Friedman makes solid stuff. I mean, Friedman's been putting together boards professionally for artists for a long time. So if anybody knows, good quality power supplies, it would be them. And I trust anything that Friedman makes. More expensive probably, but probably worth it as well. David says, what makes a bigger difference if you have smaller hands? Asking for a friend. narrower nut width or smaller fretboard diameter? That's a good question. Let me think about that. I don't know. I don't really have small hands. I'm going to say my hands are medium sized. Narrower nut width or smaller fretboard diameter. When you say smaller fretboard diameter, you're meaning like going from like a 10-inch, 9-inch or something like that, or I'm gonna say I think it would. I would have to say it's the nut width. I'd say. I think that would make it more comfortable to play. I know that that's where I get stumped. If the nut width is too narrow, then I have trouble playing the guitar. And that's one of the reasons why I sold one of my guitars that I really liked, because it wasn't the nut width. Actually, two guitars that I really liked I had to sell. The EVH Stealth that I had at one point, and I had a Music Man, an original Music Man US model, which was a fantastic guitar, but the nut width was just too narrow and I had to sell them. So I would say that probably makes more of a difference, because I've played different fretboard diameters, most of my guitars have different fretboard diameters, and it doesn't really stop me. But the nut width did, so I'm gonna say that's probably my answer right there. You guys could challenge me on that if you have a different response, but I'm going with that as my answer. Mark likes to use his Boss Katana Mini. Yeah, those are very useful. Very useful. I know Blackstar came out with something recently that's kind of going after the katana market. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. I noticed that this week, so that's it looks like they're trying to get a piece of that katana pie. Vinny says he's in Japan, so the Headrush Go has Bluetooth, which requires certification here, and I guess they don't want to bother. I didn't know that. Certification for what, Vinny? Interesting. Guitar Pit of Horrors says, love the strap lock. That's my personal favorite after trying everything on the market. Oh, you guys have good eyes. Yeah, this little guy. Yeah. These are great, man. These are bottle, what do they call them? Bottle, I forget what they're called. Bottle, they're washers, basically. I don't know what you call them. What do you call them? Do you guys remember what the name is? I got a whole box here. Look. Those are my strap locks. I actually have two different versions. I got these. The red ones. They're kind of see-through a little bit. These are great. So I use these on my guitars because they're cheap and they work so well. But I recently bought, I know I have them here. Yeah, here they are. I recently bought another pack. And these, did I open them yet? I found these. They're the same, but they're white. So I have a choice now of colors. You know, white or red. So they're not expensive. You can get these on Amazon. If anybody is interested, I don't know what the company was. It's just says Make Life Better. I don't know. I guess there's no real company name. They're called clear gaskets. Yeah, they come in a pack of. I guess there's like, I don't know, 20, maybe more. It sure beats having to like modify your guitars and stuff. They work great. Can't complain. And I also ordered, what did I order? I ordered a box of these knobs. I'm going to replace these on one of my guitars. These are like the Gibson style knobs. Let's see. I forget which guitar I bought it for though. It's been a while. But, you know, just knobs. It's for one of my projects, which I never get around to doing. But eventually I will. So Rex says, one of the biggest things I heard my wife say when we were at Music Villa in Bozeman, Montana last summer, would you be able to work with him on the price if he bought both guitars? Really? Wow, man. She is a keeper, Rex. Maybe your wife can talk to my wife. I rarely hear things like that. So that's interesting. That is very interesting. Vox says, if my wife said that, I think it was a trap. Yeah, me too. I would think something happened to my wife, like she's having a stroke. Something's wrong. David says, does she have a sister? Yeah, absolutely. 2 guitar approvals is awesome. That is like next level stuff, man. So, yeah, congratulations. So Steven says he got a couple of kit guitars to build. He's got an Ibanez Talman acoustic on the bench, getting a setup and restring this weekend. Nice. To me, I love working on my guitars on the bench. It's so relaxing. It's like me time. I put aside all of my worries, all of my issues, and just think about restringing the guitar, you know, refretting, doing a fret job, you know, working on the nut slots, all that kind of great stuff. Sain Brando says, you need a wah on that board, Tony. I actually have a wah, but I don't put it on the board. It's just too big, too heavy. And actually, I don't use a wah all that much. So, you know, there's maybe like, you know, one song that might require a little bit of a wah at some point. So lugging, you know, they're heavy. The one I have is, it's going to add another like 4 pounds probably to the board. So I like to travel light, but for the times that I do need it, I'll put it back on. So Presley says, Tony, lately I've experienced the disappointment of having gouge lines jump out after stain on a flame maple veneer. They are way too deep to sand out. I sent you a picture. What would you do? Okay, let me check, man. I have my phone set on silent, so if you send me something, I won't necessarily see it during the show because, let me just look. Let's see here. I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying. Let's see. Where is the message? Hold on. Something's coming in. My phone seems to be a little slow. I don't know why. Where did you send it? I don't see it here. Did it go into my junk? I don't think so. Hope not. I don't see it. Let me know where you sent it, because or maybe it's just slow coming in. But I'll take a look. But if I understand your question, your issue, the gouge marks when you're sanding, is this like when you're doing the sanding, Presley? Is that it? Like you're just going too deep and then the stain goes in and then you see it? I think it's really tricky because with any type of veneer, you got to be super careful with the body if you intend on staining it, because everything, all the defects will show up. I've seen, like, you know, whenever they match up the veneers, like do a center line, sometimes I've seen, like, you know, the glue show through the staining. Sometimes the butt ends of the two pieces of veneer are not completely tight, so you see that dark line. There's not a lot you can do, man. I think you can always try careful sanding, but generally it is what it is. I generally try to make sure the body is as smooth before I start the process. And what I like to do is I like to raise the grain. But when you're dealing with a veneer, you can't overdo it because you can burn right through the veneer very, very easily. But generally what I do is I'll apply some water to raise the grain, and then I'll sand it back with very light sandpaper, and I'll do that a couple of times just to make sure, you know, I've caught all the gouges. What you can do if the gouge is visible, depends on what the gouge looks like, but have you tried just using your soldering iron and a little wet sponge? Because sometimes you can just put the sponge or a little piece of wet material over the gouge. Just heat it up with you know, with a soldering iron, and it'll generally lift the gouge. And sometimes you can lift it enough where then you can like resand it and kind of make that gouge disappear. But it's tricky because they're all different. That's my advice, man. I don't have, you know, huge experience doing that kind of thing, but just logically thinking about it, that's kind of how I would deal with it. And it really works well. The wet fabric in soldering iron trick has gotten out like pretty deep dings. So I don't know about gouges. Like, it depends on how it was made. Like if it cut the grain, it might not work, but if it's like more of a dent type gouge kind of thing, it will probably work. So, okay. Anyways, I'll look at your picture later on, and I'll see if I can give you some additional advice. But I would start with that. All right. Hey, for those of you who wanted to know, this week something fun happened. Something happened. Mainly this guy. This guy's new. I don't know if you guys realize that. I usually have my Brunetti Plexi Man. That guy is usually here. So this guy is new, and the cabinet there is new. So that's a 2x12 Marshall cabinet that matches with this guy basically, which is a Studio Classic JCM 800. Yeah. So I have a funny story. Actually, not a funny story. I have a cool story about that amp, and I'm actually going to make a video and post it maybe after this, just to go out and explain what happened, because there's a really cool story around that amplifier that I didn't expect to experience, and something that I kind of will remember for a while. So it's interesting, and I think you guys would probably enjoy it. So I'll run down the entire story in a video for you guys, specifically telling you exactly what went down. And you probably won't believe me when I tell you, but I'll tell you the whole thing, A to Z in a video. But just so you guys know, the JCM 800 Studio Custom is a great JCM amplifier, man. I'm really, really happy with it. I've been playing it all weekend. I just got it like this week, so it's brand new, and it does the JCM thing really, really well. It's basically a baby JCM. I used to have the full-blown JCM 800, which was a great amplifier, but just too darn loud, so I had to get rid of it, unfortunately. But when this one popped up, it popped up with the cabinet. So it was the head, the cabinet, and the covers for both the cabinet and the head thrown in, brand new mint condition. So I had to jump on it, and that's part of the cool story that I have to tell you. Jeff says, got enough Marshall style amps there, Tony? I always think I do, Jeff, but then there's always one more that pops up, unfortunately. This is why the channel's called Addicted to Gear. I'm not playing down the fact that I got a problem, but very different, all of them. And this is the thing. So people are talking to me like, do you need to have like typically right now, if I go down the list, this is a Marshall style amp, that guy's a Marshall style amp. So JCM 800, Dirty Shirley, which is like more like a Marshall 45. Then I have this guy Brunetti, which is Brunetti Plexi Man, which is kind of like based on the Plexi circuit, and it has a hot rodded version channel on it as well, which sounds amazing. And then there's the guy behind me over here, which is basically the Studio Vintage Plexi. And I've had other Marshalls throughout the years, but I think these low wattage units are fantastic. They're great because they're going to give you all of that nice Marshall flavor without blowing out your eardrums. Dan says, what's the Friedman? It's the Dirty Shirley, Dan. Yeah. It's like a JCM 45. Kind of. Sorry, what am I saying JCM? I'm thinking about the JCM 800. It's like the 45 watt Marshall, basically. But Dave Friedman's take on it, fantastic amp as well. So And the cabinet that I got with the amp, sorry, I got something in my eye. The cabinet that I got with the amp, 2x12, and there's the Celestion V-type speakers in there, and they sound really good. That cabinet is nice because it's not particle board, it's not MDF, it's actually good quality plywood, and it's not that heavy. I'm gonna say I haven't actually tried the JCM 800 through my 4x12 cabinet down there with the Celestion 1265s, which are my favorite speakers of all time. But it does sound great through this guy here. So that's what I'm gonna try out next. I've been doing the round robin. So I played the JCM 800 on the cabinet when I initially got it. Sounds great, and I decided to see what the Brunetti Pleximan would sound through that cabinet, and it sounds great too. So now I'm going to try it on my 4x12 to see whether or not, which one actually is the magic combination. I have a feeling that it's going to do really well with the 65s. Just scrolling back on some questions. Just going back here. Vinny's World says, no wah, Tony's band doesn't play Metallica, confirmed. You're right, we don't really play Metallica, no. To me, a wah is a great pedal to use when you want to try and hide your defects. Because everything sounds good when you're playing through a wah, Any kind of lick that you have, throw in a wah and it sounds like 10 times better, even if you're sloppy. So it's a good way of hiding stuff. So Vinny says it's FCC certified. They call it a technical conformity mark. I see. Okay, I get it. Cool. Yeah, rubber washers. They're actually made of silicone. Jeff, they're not rubber. Rubber's no good. Not good, man. You don't want to be putting rubber on your guitars that are that have natural lacquer. If it's polyurethane, it won't make a difference. But if it's nitrocellulose, you don't want to be putting anything rubber on those guitars. That's why I prefer silicone. Silicone won't react. So Lorenzo says you need the black on black strap lock. I used to snag them from the Grosh beer bottles. Yeah, that's where they originally do come from. Now they're making other versions. So Presley says the grain is cut. I think I'll ink blend it to hide it and sell it as B stock. Yeah, if the grain is cut, there's not a whole bunch you can do, man. Unfortunately. And sometimes the more you mess with it, the more it's going to show. So I would say, just try and hide it as best you can, but it probably won't, unfortunately, completely go away, Presley, and it sucks when that happens. This is why you got to be super careful while you're doing this kind of stuff, but it's probably not even your fault. It just, happens. But, yeah, I know what you're saying, dude. Depends where it's located. Maybe you can, I don't know, put a pickguard on it or try and do some creative modification that'll hide it. I don't know. So Mark says, I just repaired a dent on a maple neck by using the wet damp rag and a soldering iron, and it works. Yeah, I've done the same, Mark. Yeah, it's a great tip to know. I didn't think it would work that well, but when I tried it, it worked like a charm. And that's what hurts even more, Presley, is when, you put in some hard work and it came out really, really well just for that one defect. I know what you're saying, man. Alex2112 says, love my Marshalls. I'm more of a Marshall guy. I said it a million times, so So Mark says low wattage Marshall tone is where it's at. I can't get enough of my Friedman PT20. Yeah, and you know, Friedman makes great versions of that Marshall tone. I was considering something like another Friedman as well, but then when this one came up with the matching cabinet, I couldn't resist, so I just grabbed it. You know, I would say that you know, the hand-wired Friedman stuff is fantastic. Like the Dirty Shirley is hand-wired in there, and it's completely, you know, hand-built. There's no circuit board. It's signed by Dave. I got his signature inside there as well, and they're built like tanks. And I have no worries that amp head is going to be around long after I'm gone. The new stuff, which is circuit, circuit board based, like the Marshall vintage models that I have, those are all circuit based on a circuit board. The Brunetti Pleximan too, actually, I'm pointing in the wrong place, but the Brunetti Pleximan as well is based on a circuit board. There's nothing wrong with circuit boards if they're built properly. You won't have any problems with them, but you know, it's hand wired is always hand wired. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sound better, but it's easier to repair. Warheart Art says only tube amp I owned was a Fender Vibroverb 64. Don't miss it. Someday I'll get an OR15. You don't miss it? Really? I don't know. I know that the Vibro Luxes they're great sounding Fender amps. The Vibroverb I've never tried. The Vibro Luxes I've seen a couple of times pop up, and they're pretty expensive. I've been tempted, but I never actually snagged one at that price. Like I said, I'm more of a Marshall guy, but you know, there's something to be said about having a really nice Fender amp as well. I'm pretty happy with my hand-built Princeton that I put together. I was playing it yesterday, and I was actually trying out. This actually. I don't know if you guys know about this yet, but this is a new unit from Hotone. It's called the I can't even pronounce it. Verbera. It's basically their version of like a high-end reverb pedal, and it sounds really, really good. I'm actually surprised at how great it sounds. And you know, Princeton Reverb has a great built-in reverb as well, but with that, you know, it sounds amazing. So, you know, if you're going to be playing with reverb, you're not really going to want to do that on a JCM 800, right? Marshall platform, you're kind of losing out. You know, great reverbs are not really, I'm going to say, you know, part and parcel of that Marshall sound. You know, if I'm using a Marshall, I probably just have a plate reverb going on, something like that, and leave it at that. But you know, with these type of very delicate reverbs and stuff, you need to play through a Fender to be able to really take advantage of all that stuff. And it sounds really great. So I'll be doing a demo for you guys on that as well. It sounds fantastic. So Jeff says, I got more Marshall style amps than anything else, but I don't actually own a Marshall at the moment. Even 3 of my 6 Synergy modules are Marshall style. So I guess you're also a Marshall, more of a Marshall guy, leaning into that Marshall territory, Jeff, which is fantastic. It's good to have access to everything if you can. You know, when you do want to be playing something clean, you can pull out the little Fender Princeton, which will do a fantastic job. I have the Supersonic as well, which I was playing the other day, and you know, sounds fantastic as well, depending on what you're trying to do with it. The Vibroverb had a Jensen 15 and sounded clacky. The first time I hear the word clacky to describe a speaker. What do you mean by clacky? Is that quacky? Are you trying to say quacky or clacky? I don't know what that means. Paul says, I have a $19 USD with free shipping, more made muff coming tomorrow. Okay, 19 bucks, huh? Interesting. I'd be interested to hear how that one sounds. Warheart says, interesting. Always interested in muffs. um, I wanted to talk a little bit about some cool stuff that I actually played around with this week. So I did a video on the Valaton GP5. I showed that a couple of weeks back. The very tiny unit. This guy here, I still have it on my desk. This little guy, Valaton GP5. I did a video on that. It's a great sounding little unit, man. It actually blew me away how good it sounds in such a small little package. It's a great backup if you're, you need to have something just in case your amp dies, or, you're going traveling, or you want to practice. It's like this small. You can put your headphones right into it and play all kinds of great sounds, and it has like IR loading and all kinds of other things. I don't know why anybody would not want to buy one of those things. But you can check out the video. It's in my video feed. And hear some of the sounds. I did do a little play sample. I couldn't go through all of the sounds because there's just too many. But, the ones that I played, with the factory defaults sounded great. And you can make them even better with just a little bit of tweaking. So I highly recommend that one if you guys are looking for something. I think it's like $80 or something. It's not very expensive, but they're pretty much sold out right now, unfortunately. They're selling like hotcakes. So speaking of cake, I'll be doing the Sonic Cake Maytree Box 2 review as well this week at some point. Let's see here. So Warheart says the second band EQ and bright switch was not pleasing to me. So that wasn't something you could dial out with an EQ pedal. Sometimes we give up on gear a little too fast, and EQs can do a lot. Mazzetti says, how do you lower pickups on a guitar where they are screwed directly into the body and it doesn't look like there's any more room for them to go down? So like my EVH Wolfgang was made that way, where it's actually screwed down to the body. There's not a whole lot you can do, man. You're kind of stuck. The only thing is if they do have any spacers underneath the legs of the pickups, you can probably remove the spacers, go a little bit lower. Just be careful not to screw through the body. Just be careful, because sometimes there's not a whole lot of thickness of wood back there. And you don't want to have a hole or a screw sticking out the back of your guitar. But there's not much else you can do. You're kind of limited, unfortunately. What type of guitar is this? You can always lower the pole pieces a little bit, if that maybe can help, if you don't have to go down too much. That's always an option. But let us know what type of guitar. Rico says that was a great review. However, your link said it's out of stock. Any idea who has them in stock? I couldn't find anyone. Rico, right now I think they're just out of stock across the board. They're very popular. Eventually they'll come back. You just have to keep your eyes on it. Just make sure that you act fast when you do see them. They probably will eventually pop up on Amazon. I don't think you can get them on Amazon yet, but you can get them through the actual Valaton website, I think, at this stage. Warheart says router. You got to be careful with the router. Yeah, you can use a router, but like I said, there's not much meat back there most of the time. You don't want to blow right through the back of your guitar. Dan says that Trio is out of stock as well. The Trio? Which Trio? Everything's out of stock. I guess somebody's shopping. Anyways, so a couple of things that I wanted to mention this week, just in case you guys were interested. A couple of interesting products last week. Okay, well, first I'll start off with the Black Star stuff, because as I said earlier today, Black Star's kind of going after the Katana. So they've come out with a new modeling amp, and it's called the Next Gen IDX. It's a combo, and it has 6 amp voices. There's more than 32 effects. There's cab rig IR technology built in, a whole like OLED display, and they have the 50 watt and 100 watt combos. So there's a lot of features packed into these things. So this is why I'm thinking they're going into the they're going into the market, and they're trying to, I guess they have Katana, Boss in their sights. I haven't tried one yet, but I know they're probably gonna sell like hotcakes. And I think if I'm correct on this, I think the price is gonna be about like $400 for the 50, and probably like close to 600 for the 100. So it's not cheap. They're actually going to be more expensive, I think, than the Katanas. So they got to be better. If they're asking more money, they hopefully will be better. I'll try them eventually, just out of curiosity, just to see what they can do. But they look cool. They look like they're basically a Katana knockoff, more or less. But they offer so many effects, like there's 35. So I think they actually have more effects than the Katana does at this stage. So interesting. Hey Presley, thanks for reminding everybody to hit that like button. You're right, I didn't even mention it today. Yeah, absolutely, man. Please do. It helps us. Helps the channel. I think if you guys enjoy it and you feel like you're getting your money's worth, cough, cough, it's free. You get what you pay for, guys. But I would appreciate some thumbs up, definitely. I think there's 34 right now. We're like, what, 50, almost 60 people in here. So a few more thumbs up would be great. If you guys are new, please subscribe to be able to chat, and jump in on the chat, because we're not finished. We still got some time to talk about a couple of interesting things today that I have lined up. So don't be shy. The other thing I wanted to mention, there's a new unit coming out. There's so many new units, but the Helix Stadium and the Stadium LX have come out. And, basically Helix has been around for a long time. Line 6 has been around for ages. They've been putting out, modeling technology for a long time, probably 30 years, maybe more. And they've come up with the new platforms, which they call the Helix Stadium series. And I'm curious to try them out. I think they're going to be interesting. They claim that they have AI technology in there. So I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if they're just using it as a buzzword, but they look cool, and they might, put a dent into higher end floor unit sales, something like the Fractal, which is pretty expensive. So if they can do, if they can get close to that and maybe make it simpler, that's probably plenty for most people. So I have a feeling that they'll sell really, really well. Just by looking at them, you can see they have a nice screen on there. They have the same type of pedal layout that you have on a Fractal. They even have the expression pedal built in, so you don't have to buy a separate one. And these are all great things in terms of, just making the unit very as flexible as possible. And then they have a smaller version which doesn't have the expression pedal, but I think has more or less the same functions, maybe just less sounds, that type of thing. So I'm curious to try that, man. I really would like to get my hands on one. They're not cheap though. I mean, you know, that here's the thing. From what I see, so the Helix Stadium is going for $2,200, and the smaller unit will be $1,008, I think. So they're gonna be. I mean, they're expensive. They're gonna be. I don't know how they're gonna be received. To be honest, I have to wait and see. They've only been out for a little while. I think they dropped the 25th of June, so maybe a couple weeks ago. Haven't seen too many YouTube videos yet on that. But at that price point, I mean, you're getting close to the price of a Fractal. And Fractal is like pro quality gear, right? Whereas the Line 6 is still sort of consumer grade. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if the sounds are great, I'm sure they'll do very, very well. So we'll see. But it's got my attention. It's on my radar. I'm always looking for cool things, and it looks cool to me. So we'll see. And then we were talking about the FR speakers earlier, the Headrush stuff. And it's funny because EVH, the EVH brand, also released their version of a 12-inch FR speaker, 1,000 watts. When I say 1,000 watts, I do mean it's not rated the same. It's still solid state, so don't think it's like 1,000 watts tube. It's not the same. But they've come out with this nice cabinet, and it has a 12-inch speaker in there. It's got there's a 3-band EQ plus high frequency cut dial built right into it, and it's available in black or ivory. And it's cool that they're getting into that market. I don't know why they released it under the EVH brand though. That's what I don't get. Like, you know, EVH is Fender, right? So I'm wondering why they released it as EVH. Considering it's not like Eddie Van Halen never really used an FR speaker, so why would they make the connection with that brand as opposed to putting it out as a Fender product? I'm not really sure. But 1,000 watts, Class D. It's a little under 30 pounds, not super heavy. I like the way it looks because it looks like an actual amp because it's got the controls on the top. So if somebody doesn't know, they would think it's an amp. So it blends in really nicely. And the price, what is the price? I don't know. They don't mention the price. So I'm curious to see how much they would cost. I would have to do a lookup on that. So there's a lot of cool things coming out, man. And there's no lack of cool products, that's for sure. So what else have you guys been looking at? Anything else? Looks like I'm the guy doing most of the shopping this week. Curious to see what you guys are up to with that. So my knees hurt says he picked up a Boss Katana 2x10 bass amp this week and he saved $200. So you bought it used? Is that why you saved the $200? So Warheart says, why not just buy a powered PA monitor for an FR? Some people think that they're exactly the same. Like if you look at a Headrush unit, for example, it does look like a PA monitor. I don't know if the EQ is tweaked further to make it even more flat, because I'm not sure like a regular PA monitor is really flat. I think they do a little bit of tweaking on those to make them even flatter as a response. But I mean, technically they're very similar. Mark says he's gotten 3 new guitars and a new bass in the last month. That's pretty good, man. So it's like what, almost one a week? Is that it? Are you on a shopping spree, Mark? Are you getting rid of stuff while you're bringing in these new things, or is the herd growing out of control? How many do you have in all total now? Just curious. Shane says saw an old Boss GT10 for $90. Is there anyone? Is there any merit in buying an old effects unit? I mean, you can still, for $90. I mean, you can honestly, get some good sounds out of it, I think. But honestly, if you're going to go with something like a GT10, you're better off just getting this little Valaton unit, because it's like almost the same amount of money, and you could load in IRs and you could do a whole bunch of stuff with it that you can't really do with the old GT10s. I think the sounds also have changed quite a bit since the GT10s. So I used to have a GT10 back in the day, I remember. But, things are evolving, man. They're changing quick. Presley says, my 8-year-old twin nephews managed to break my Spark 40. They snapped the headphone jack off inside the unit. Yeah, oof. $274 later, the Spark 2 replaced it. It does say something about Spark. Well, I guess the moral of the story here, Presley, is keep your nephews away from your gear. I'm sure they didn't mean it, but, yeah, it hurts when something like that happens, I guess. So my knees hurt says I was in sales tax free Oregon. And Boss Katana was on sale $150 off. It's the floor model, but new. That's a nice deal. Did anybody take advantage of the Amazon Prime event or whatever in terms of getting any gear off of Amazon? I kind of avoid buying gear off of Amazon in terms of actual instruments, but sometimes you can get a pedal or some accessories or stuff like that, which is not bad. Mark says he got a used Ibanez John Schofield, a new Yamaha RevStar standard with P90s, a PRS SE NF53, and a Steinberger 5 string bass. Nice. You got all your bases covered there, man. You got your jazz covered there. You got your, the RevStar RevStar's pretty flexible, but it's got P90, so you got that covered. The PRS and the bass. That's cool. Nice selection there. And Mark's being a good boy. He said he sold a ton of stuff to get it all, which is nice. I got to do that too, Mark. I got to start getting rid of stuff that I've been I just put in a closet and I forget it. My problem is I forget about it, and it's there, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I had this. Maybe it's time for me to get rid of it. You gotta take inventory every now and then just to make sure that you don't have just what I call just items that could be turned into money, that could be put into other gear or whatever. If you're not using it, then just flip it, get rid of it, move on. Think ahead. Zarly says picked up the Flamma FF20 on Prime Day sales. Also picked up a Friedman PT combo at Long and McQuaid. Both great options there, man. The PT20 sounds fantastic. The FF20, I think I reviewed that a week ago, which is another very cool pedal. Good choices there. Nice. And Jeff said, I bought a Duke of Tone pedal, seriously looking at the Hills Headless. The Duke of Tone is also a nice choice, man. Yeah, that's cool. Great options there. Mark said he's got 18 guitars now, including acoustics and basses. You're getting up there, Mark, man. You're going to need an extra room soon. It's okay. It's a good problem to have, dude. Don't worry about it. I'm not dissing it at all, man. You know me. Dan says, I'm looking for nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's Dan's story right now, and he's sticking with it. And Warheart says, I don't support Amazon. Just me. It's not like they're starving, man, you know. Amazon's a big machine. So Shane says, I'm at 11 guitars, but recently saw an 80s lefty Charvel that I might pick up next week for 500 bucks. Does the wife know about this, Shane? Have you told her yet? Shh. She didn't hear it from me. Or maybe, I hope she's not lurking in the back listening to this, or I'm in trouble. A lot of people are turning away from Amazon, but honestly, I think at the end of the day, the machine's going to continue. Unless everybody decides to do the same, it's just going to, you know, keep on getting bigger and bigger. So Paul says, Tony, maybe Fender wants an EVH modular amp out and even designed it. I guess they had a say in the design. I mean, it is Fender. I don't know why though. I would figure they would probably, with their, you know, the unit that just came out recently, they probably would have released it as a Fender product, but I guess they got their reasons. I'm not really sure. Simon says, Tony, I scored on a guitar. Which one, man? Don't keep us in suspense. My knees hurt says, selling gear means human interaction. That's going to be a no from me, dog. What do you mean? Are you antisocial? You want to stay away from humans. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Just hang with your guitars and everything's fine. So Zarly said, your review sold me on the FF20. So I hope you enjoyed it, man. I hope you like it. I had a lot of fun with that unit. I like it a lot. Hope you do too, man. So Warheart says, I've had easy dealings on Reverb. To be honest, I've never actually sold anything on Reverb myself or purchased anything. I like to deal face to face as much as possible, especially when it comes to gear, unless it's something I just can't get here, unless it's something that just is not available. I was actually looking on Reverb a little while ago for a Supro, another Supro amp, which I owned in the past and sold foolishly. Should have kept it. But it's okay. The JCM 800 Studio Vintage, Studio Custom or Classic, I always mix up the names, kind of made me forget about the Supro at this stage. So I'm happy for now. All right. And Simon said, I obtained a Gibson Firebird Classic Limited Edition 1978. And guess what cost? Let me think. Don't tell me free, because if you tell me free, I'm gonna flip. 1978. I'm gonna say, take a guess, $1,500. Which is, I would say, a pretty good deal. Jack says, I have 16 right now and have no room for no more. Jack, I don't believe you. I'm sure there's room somewhere. You know, that closet, under the bed. You know, you can be creative and find new ways to squeeze in a few more. So Kevin says, trying to choose between Sonic Kick, Pocket Master, Velaton Go 5, or Fender Micro Plus for my travel companion. Suggestions. So Kevin, I don't have any of those, so I can't really say firsthand. But I mean, I'm sure somebody here probably has one that could help you determine which one they like. The issue is there's so much choice right now. It's kind of hard until you actually try them side by side. But I mean, I can only talk about the Velaton. You know, the GP5. I like this one. It's not the Go 5 you're talking about. It's called the GP5, but it's quite good and it's not that expensive. So I'm not sure what the other ones are selling for. I would have to compare in terms of pricing as well. But maybe somebody can help you make that decision here. So Simon says he got it for $88 80 UK pounds? And I only wanted the case until I have the guitar. Plus signed autograph of Alan Holdsworth. I didn't realize it or expect it. Hold on a second, Simon. I'm not following here. So you got, are we talking just the case here, or we're talking the case and the guitar? Because that doesn't make sense. If it's just the case, okay. If it's the case and the guitar, you're blowing my mind right now. Hey, Orion, what's up, man? Wayne says he's drowning in guitars, and apparently I like it that way. You're not the only one, Wayne. And Dan's open for new guitar suggestions. Dan, man, there's so many to choose from. So many. Not enough days. Let us know what you're sort of in the market for there. What are you aiming for? What's tickling your fancy? Maybe we can give you some gas for something new. Shane says most reverb transactions go smoothly. It's just the 1 out of 10 transactions that gray your hair. Yeah, sometimes you can get lucky and land on that 1 out of 10 the first time you actually make a transaction. When I look at reverb, I usually try and filter to see if any sellers are local first. And then, if they are local, I'd rather just contact them direct, like go into their store. Like some of them are merchants, so you can actually go to the store, check out the gear and whatnot. So I'd rather do that. But so far, I'm a reverb virgin. Never had any experience on reverb. I used to buy a lot on, a lot. I used to buy some stuff, sell mostly, but buy some stuff on eBay. But that I sort of stopped doing that now as well because of, there's no advantage anymore to eBay when you're Canadian. There's just too many fees and services and shipping and duties and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense anymore. So Simon says, it's cool when I say that. Tony, I took it at a music shop by me and authentic. The guitar and his real photos will be on your channel email address. Okay, I'm kind of not clear on what you're trying to say, but you're going to be sending me something, so I'll take a look. Okay. So Simon, if you ended up getting an authentic Gibson for $80, including the case and Alan Holdsworth signed pictures, that's the deal of the century, I would say. Yeah, man, that's fantastic. I wish I had stories like that, but I never get that lucky. I think I probably have bad karma. Maybe you have very good karma because it seems like you ended up getting something fantastic from day one, like right away. Very cool, man. Tell me where you shop. I'd like to join in. What the hell's going on here? I'm just trying to do something here. I can't. Sometimes I just have like nothing functions here. Anyways, I was just trying to look something up real quick. All right. I'm just trying to scroll here. Sorry if I skipped over your comment, just because I'm trying to catch up with the last ones here. So I'm just scrolling from the bottom up. Tony, Paul says, Tony, many modeler guys would never buy a Fender anything. As long as they think EVH is independent, they would buy that. It's true what you're saying, Paul. I do kind of feel the same way. I don't know why I don't feel as confident in Fender for like effects, even pedals. Like I've never ever owned a Fender pedal. And I agree, the multi-effects the fact that it's put out by Fender kind of turns me off a little bit. But I don't know why. I mean, they make other things well. It's just one of those things. I don't have a real honest to goodness reason for it. It's just it's just a feeling I have. But I guess I'm not the only one. My knees hurt says one of the office buildings I worked in this week had a black BC Rich Warlock hanging on the wall. Very cool. Nice. So Simon, I'm not going to say it, Simon mentions that, says, Tony, I asked for the guitar case. I did not expect the guitar added in. I was shocked. So you basically ended up getting the case with the guitar? Obviously, whoever sold you that thing didn't know what they were selling you. Hey man, if that happens, start the car. Just take off. You know what I mean? I hope you didn't try to haggle him down another $5. That would have been really funny. Hey man, would you do 75? Wow, man, that's fantastic. Good for you. Well, I mean, look, if the person didn't know what they were selling, I don't really feel bad for them. They probably wouldn't miss it anyways. So, all right. I just hope it wasn't like some mom selling their son's guitar or something, you know. Very cool story, man. It almost beats my story about the Marshall JCM 800 that I'm going to tell you guys later, but not quite. I think my story is just a little bit better. So I'll let you tune in for that. All right. Anything else, guys? I mean, there's always so much stuff we can talk about when it comes to gear. Other things that I came across this week that I thought was interesting. It's not necessarily gear related, but it was funny that I came across an article. I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan, and it's funny because there was an article that popped up in my feed. I took note of it because I wanted to share with you guys. I figured there's other Led Zeppelin fans out there. And it was an article stating that all of the members of Led Zeppelin, you know, they were kind of like, they worked as a unit. That's why Led Zeppelin was such a great band, is because nobody was lackluster in the band. Everybody did what they did very, very well, from John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, everybody, John Bonham. There was no slouches in that band. But it's funny because John Paul Jones revealed in this article, in this interview, that he didn't necessarily consider them friends. But I think you have to take that with a grain of salt. Like, what I think he meant was that after the tours, after all the rocking was over, they didn't hang out. It wasn't like they were buddies and like, hey, let's go, you know, play some pool tomorrow, or, you know, go for a drink or something like that. They would all kind of just basically spread out, you know, go their own way, do their own thing until it was time to come back for another tour. So in that respect, I think he was trying to say that, you know, they basically, you know, they weren't necessarily friends. Like, they didn't grow up together like the Beatles did, for example. They were, you know, they were formed very early on, and they hung out. They didn't do that. It was basically, they were put together. Like, Jimmy Page selected the members of the band to make like the super group. You know, they were basically studio musicians put together to achieve something. So that it was a real working relationship, you know. And that's, you know, he goes on to say that's probably why they lasted, because, you know, at the end of the day, they would all go ahead and do their own thing. So it's interesting to see that, because a lot of people, you know, automatically consider like a band, like they're like brothers, you know, they're married together kind of thing, but it's not always the case. So, so Shane says the only Fender products I presently own are a Mustang Micro and a Hammer Tone Overdrive. All right, and do you like them? I mean, what do you feel? Are they keepers, or they're just temporary for now? Vinny says, ironically, the Fender Tone Master is a really good unit. I'm not saying Fender's bad. Don't get me wrong, guys. I don't want to insult anybody here. I don't think the Fender stuff is bad. I think it sounds great. It's just, I just feel like there's some kind of a feeling, and I can't understand why that is, but I think it's there. People just feel like Fender should only be focusing on guitars. And they put out other pedals. They've tried many times to put out, series of new pedals and stuff like that, but they kind of just, they don't do well. They don't, even the acoustic guitars. I find like Fender acoustic guitars never really catch on. Like I don't see too many people saying, I got to go buy an acoustic guitar. I'm going to check out that Fender acoustic guitar. They don't do it. Shane says you can argue that every member of Zeppelin was the greatest all-time at their instrument. They were definitely masters, Shane, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, there's better guitarists. I mean, when I say better, I mean, cleaner, maybe even, musically trained. They could be maybe more advanced, than Jimmy Page was. But at the time, Jimmy definitely had a flair that nobody else did. And even though he wasn't the cleanest player, he was rather sloppy in his playing. And even live, never really played the same thing twice. It was more like a jam session. But he still was, a master in his own right. And I think that was the essence of Led Zeppelin. They were just a powerful unit. And you knew, I don't think, beyond maybe the later stuff, after John Bonham passed away, the concerts that they did sort of after the fact, after Led Zeppelin, I don't think the early stuff, I don't think they ever had a show that wasn't mesmerizing. All the videos that I've seen floating around, the official ones, or even the bootleg videos that are floating around, they all sound great, and it sounds like the performance is, mind-blowing. So anyway, just wanted to mention that because it kind of caught my attention. I said, hey, it's kind of interesting to hear that perspective. So Jeff says, I got a Cornell Plexi 1820 head on reverb. Serial number was unusual. I Googled it and I found a Noel Gallagher listing with the same number. I contacted Cornell. They confirmed mine is one of 3 made for Noel. Nice, dude. Hey, that's a cool story. Very cool. See, I like stories like that. That's kind of similar to the story I'm going to tell you about the amp later. But I like that kind of stuff. I love when these kind of magical accidents happen where you think you're going, you're buying something and then all of a sudden you're like, hey man, this is way better than I expected, way cooler than I expected. So I guess you're going to hang on to that one. My niece hurt says John Bonham was a studio guy. I think he was. I'm not actually sure about John Bonham all that much, but what I did read is that he was a very, popular drummer back in the day. I know Jimmy Page was definitely a studio guy. I know John Paul Jones was definitely a studio guy. So I'm pretty sure John Bonham was probably playing with other people as well. My knees hurt says, I never play the same thing twice. Where are the groupies and the piles of money? Yeah, I don't think that's the entire formula. I don't think so. Would be good though. Indeed, Shane. Yep. Page was a very popular in-demand studio guy back in the 60s. Yeah, it's true. Yep. Simon mentions here Nuno Bedencourt is having his own brand guitar company. Tony, review one when available. I haven't really heard much about that. Okay, so he's riding the wave. He got pretty popular there recently. He's in the spotlight a lot, so I guess somebody snagged him. Is it completely his own brand, or is it made by, you know, another company like Ibanez or someone else? I'd be curious to find that out. I think there's a couple of other people that probably have tried that in the past, but I don't know how successful it is. You know, there's a big challenge today in anything music related. You know, sales are tough. Even the big boys are having trouble keeping sales going because a lot less people are playing guitar. So will he be successful, or will this just be a one-off? We don't know. We'll have to see. Zarly says, I have a JCM 2000 known for dirt, but the clean channel is amazing. I used to have one of those. I had one of those as well for a while. Jimmy Page is also the reason I play guitar, Alex. He was my main influence as a young boy. Rico, we didn't talk about the Sabbath concert this week. I mentioned it last week. Yeah, so I think a lot of people probably tuned in for that. I mentioned that, you know, it was a little bit sad seeing Ozzy having to play, you know, one last concert. I mean, I don't think he's able to do it anymore. And to be honest, I think he's put in a good run. I think it's time for him to kind of, you know, mosey on off into the sunset and enjoy the rest of his days that he has left. But I mean, he's got his own issues, and honestly, he shouldn't be doing that too often. It takes a lot out of you. But I guess one last hurrah is good. You know, it's a good way to sort of close the book on you know, his lifelong passion, which is music. So it was cool to see, I have to say. All right, let's do the poll question, and then we'll wrap it up. So let me jump to that here. If you guys are new, you don't know where the poll question is, it's usually in the community tab. So you can I usually put in a poll question every week just to keep things spicy. And this week's question was specifically about pedals. And let's see how many votes we got on that. We got 167 votes so far. And the question this week was, how many pedals do you currently have on your pedal board? And so we went from 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 or more. So I'm just curious to see what the most popular question or answer was there. So in order of popularity, 29% of you said you have 8 or more pedals on your pedal board. That's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know how many pedals you would need, but 8 is the max. With my power supply, I can't really go above 8. So I'm maxed out at 8, but 29% of you said 8 or more, which is surprising to me. I would have thought it would be a little bit lower than that. 28% of you said 5 to 8, which I think is more in the norm of where most people would be, 5 to 8 pedals. 23% of you said 3 to 5 pedals, and only 20% said 1 to 3. So I guess the 20%ers are kind of, you know, the bare minimum, which is fine. There's no reason that, you know, you should use even one pedal. If you can get a great tone right out of your guitar and amp, you don't need any pedals. But I think 5 to 8 is generally where most people lie. So I'm surprised to see almost 30% of you said 8 or more. So there is a couple of comments. I'm going to just look at those comments here. See what people are sharing. So someone says, a few only get used for one song, like the American Woman with the Dean Cadillac is perfect for Led Zeppelin Cashmere. It's true. It's true. It's like sometimes you do carry that one extra pedal just for that one song. You know, like if you're going to be playing Van Halen, well, then you're going to probably want to have that Phase 90 on your board. Will it be used elsewhere? Probably not. You know, same thing like we mentioned earlier. If you're playing Metallica, you're probably going to want that wah pedal. But if you're not, you probably don't need it. So I try and, you know, try and have the tools that I need, but I don't like carrying extra pedals for nothing. ZD351 says, I have none on my board at the moment, so there's no option for me to click. I tore them off to reorganize my board about 5 years ago and never got around to it. They're all sitting around in a couple of bags, and my board is empty. So you mentioned that earlier, so I get that. And then someone says, first questions first. How many pedal boards do you have? Well, that's a whole other poll question. Maybe we'll do that next week. I'm pretty sure most of you guys probably have more than one, right? But that's a good question. And then someone says, I never used the board until I got my 5th pedal. So a lot of you might just be carrying them loose, you know, in a bag or something like that, and never even thought about a pedal board. But a pedal board is the way to go if you want to protect your investments, because, you know, it could get very expensive. You want to take care of those things. And someone here jokingly says, you guys have pedals? And then finally another viewer says, I own more but use only 5 basic ones, and even use them sparingly. I do that too, though. Like, just because I have 8 pedals on my board, that doesn't mean all of those pedals are on at the same time. As a matter of fact, sometimes it could be completely off, depending on the amp that I'm using, as I mentioned earlier. Certain amps, you don't even need pedals. That's what I was saying about the Brunetti. You know, just use them for a little bit of extra flavor. And that's basically enough. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve. It's like baking a cake. You want to use the right ingredients at the right time, not all, you know, all of them at the same time. That's a recipe for disaster, I would say. My Knees Hurt says, I'm going back and forth between buy cheap pedal board or make a wooden pedal board. But, you know, you can make your own. You can definitely customize it. But there's a lot of really inexpensive pedal boards floating around today, so you might not even need to put in the effort. They come with the Velcro, they come with the bag most times as well, and they'll do the job perfectly well. So, you know, yeah, you can do it out of wood if you have it, but, you know, sometimes the wood is even heavier than just buying one of those cheap pedal boards. So maybe look at that first. Jeff says 2 of my 5 are double pedals, but I counted them as 1 each. I see what you mean. Like the combo units. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even have 1 combo unit on my pedal board right now. I have I try and keep it as minimal as I can. And if I can put smaller pedals on the board and they sound good, I'll do that, just because I don't like carrying extra weight. But right now I can tell you what's on my pedal board. I have 2 rows. The top row is mostly for gain, and the bottom row is mostly the effects that go into the effects loop. So right to left on the top, I have my TC Electronics tuner pedal. I have my EP booster, just as a boost. I have my NUX, the 60, what's it called? The 65 pedal, which has a surprising amount of gain, but it's great for driving. It's like an overdrive, driving most pedals, most amps, I mean. It does a really good job. Has a nice sound. So I keep that one, and then the next one is my Rook, Mojo Hand Rook. And sometimes I'll use both, like I'll stack both if I need a little bit more gain. And then finally I go into a 6-band EQ. It's kind of like an MXR, but it's not an MXR. It's actually a Joyo. And I've had that on my board for a long time, and I figured, you know what, I'll keep that one on my board till it dies, and then maybe eventually get the MXR or replace it with a Boss version. It never died, so it's still on my board. I've probably had it for like 10 years already. So that's what I have going on my first row. And on my second row, I just have TC Electronics Reverb. Well, I have three things actually going on. I have a modulation combo pedal, which works really well. It's made from Flamma, and the only reason I use that one is because it's got a whole bunch of modulation effects built into one pedal. So I have the flange, the phase, and all kinds of other things in one pedal, so I don't have to have multiples. So I'll use that just to get my flange and phase pedal sounds and stuff. Then I have my TC Electronics flashback delay. And then I have the TC Electronics Reverb, and they work really well. But I have a feeling that perhaps the new Hotone reverb unit that I'm going to be doing a video demo of very soon might actually kick off one of those pedals, because they sound really, really good. But I'll see. I'll have to experiment a little bit more with that. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. I've been talking for almost 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. If you guys did, please give me a thumbs up on the way out. I would appreciate that. Now I'll post the next date. We'll be doing a live event. It might not happen next week. I'm not really sure, depending on whether or not I'll be traveling or not. We'll see. It's sort of like the summer schedule is upon us, so it might not be every single Sunday. We'll see. But I'll let you know. If you keep your eye on the channel, I'll always put an announcement before we have the live show. And I am trying to line up a special guest I mentioned earlier, last week and the week before. If I can, you might want to stay tuned for that as well, because that could be very interesting and eye-opening for you guys if you're into mostly software, multi-effects, and all that kind of stuff. So that's it for today, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Stay cool if you can. Enjoy your gear. Make sure your necks are not getting warped with all the humidity. Adjust them from time to time, and we'll be back before you know it with another Sunday show. So I hope you have a fantastic week. Get through it in flying colors and come back for more, because we will be back eventually. Stay tuned. There'll be more great videos coming up on the channel as well for you to enjoy during the week. All right. Thumbs up, boys. Thank you for participating and always making it fun. See you guys soon. All right. Take care, guys.